Welcome to the Pikmin boss tier list. I'll be ranking every boss from Pikmin 1 to 3 on this tier list. This will be a personal feelings tier list. This is not a difficulty. I'll be ranking them just on how I feel about them. If you've never seen a tier list before, don't worry, you'll catch on quick. There will be timestamps to help you find each boss, even though they are in alphabetical order. Anyways, let's start off here with the Armored Cannon Beetle. The Armored Cannon Beetle is fine, I think. I think the way that you fight him is like a little too obtuse. I think if I was a child, I probably wouldn't have ever like figured out how to fight this guy before. But I like his design quite a bit. He's very unique, and he's also like pretty deadly. Like he can mess up your squad if you're not careful. Overall, I think I like the Armored Cannon Beetle. His impact is a little lessened by the fact that he appears twice, but honestly, I think he's a pretty good boss, especially by Pikmin standards. I'm just gonna slap him up an A tier there for now. A for Armored. Next up, the Armored Mawdad. The first boss of Pikmin 3, I also think this boss is quite good. He tests the skills that you've learned up to that point, which is basically how to use rocks and reds. You need rocks to fight him, but then after you break his armor down, red Pikmin are actually better because they cling on and do more damage to him. He's not very lethal, but again, he is the first boss, so I can kind of give him some slack on the lethality department. I think the main issue I have with this boss is the fact that you can break his mandibles in one rock Pikmin. So it takes 2 throws total to basically make him completely moot, and he can't damage Pikmin when you break his mandibles. I think that's a little unfortunate. Other than that, I think this is actually a really great way to start off the game. I think Armored Mawdad is a really good boss, so you know what? He's going an A for Armored Mawdad. Beady Longlegs, my beloved. In Pikmin 1, this guy is the best boss in the game, in my opinion. He comes down out of nowhere, probably jump scares you, and he just instantly starts stomping. It's not hard to figure out how to fight this guy. You see his big orb in the center, and you know you have to throw Pikmin on that, and you know you have to throw yellows because it's very high up. And he stomps so fast, you kind of... The fight against him is this kind of weird dance where you're throwing Pikmin on him, and then he kind of shakes them off, and you have to walk around calling them off, trying to stay underneath him, because directly underneath his head is the safest spot. But it's just kind of an awkward fight, but I like that. It's a bit of a dance instead of just, waiting for the boss to become open and then throwing and then calling back and running away. You have to get in the thick of it to really fight him. He's also very unique. He's the only giant spider in that game, so he gets points for that. And this is our first boss that appears in multiple games. His fight in Pikmin 2 is unfortunate to say the least. He stomps slower, he has less health. He sucks in Pikmin 2. You have to fight him like twice. At no point does this guy ever feel like he's a legitimate threat, which sucks because I think his appearance in Pikmin 1 is really, really good. So if this was just Pikmin 1, I'd put him in S tier, but unfortunately his appearance in 2 weighs him down. I think we're going to put him in B for Beady. I promise these will not be coded to their names starting from now. The Eyed Crawmad. This guy is unfortunate. I'm not convinced that this guy can actually eat Pikmin. I played True Spice, which is a difficulty mod for Pikmin 3, and you have to fight him like 2 or 3 times in that, and he still never even got close to eating one. I mean, he's just a Hermit Crawmad but bigger, but he's somehow easier because you don't have to wait for him to attack. He just gets stun-locked every time you take out one of his eyes, and you get thrown on his belly. Even if you're not using wings, even if you use blues or something, this guy, he just takes so long to do anything, and it takes no time at all to damage one of his eyes. He's an absolute joke. I'm gonna put him in C tier for now. We'll do some final touches at the end, but for now I think C tier is a reasonable enough spot for him. Burrowing Snagret. The Burrowing Snagret to me is kind of like the face of Pikmin. I like his design a lot. It's very unique and yet familiar, right? You see the bird, you see the snake body, and that's familiar to you, but when you combine them together, it kind of creates this interesting looking boss. He's very memorable. In Pikmin 1, he's also very deadly. He has quite a lot of HP. And he's also... he's deadly when you look at him for the first time, and you maybe try to fight him and lose a lot of Pikmin, but then you get that moment where you see him get stuck on the ground, and then a light bulb clicks on in your head, and you say to yourself, oh, I need to wait for him to get stuck on the ground, and that's my opportunity for damage. So, there's 3 of them in that small area. It's not, easy to deal with them in the first game. He's also the only boss to appear in all 3 Pikmin games. Let's go through that. Pikmin 2, he's a joke. He has, no health. He dies in 1 cycle, every single time. He shows up, 6 or 7 times, and he's just never threatening in the slightest. In Pikmin 3, they somehow made him even easier. But that's because I think he has more health in Pikmin 3. But in Pikmin 3, when you damage him for, I don't know, a quarter of his health, he just kind of goes back in the ground. And he always gets stuck out of the ground when he tries to come out. So it's just he never really does anything. I've never even gotten close to losing a Pikmin to this guy in 3. So I don't know. He's not... In Pikmin 2 and 3, he's pretty easy. But in the first game, he's, like, really good. I think I'm going to put him in B for Burrowing now. We'll keep him there for now. I feel quite positively about this guy. Emperor Bulblax, the final boss of Pikmin 1. So he appears in both games, Pikmin 1 and 2. In Pikmin 1, he is a massive damage sponge. He's not... like, if you don't know how to fight him, he's going to kill your entire squad, because his tongue and crush attack both have no limit to how many Pikmin they can kill. But once you figure out how to fight him, he's really just an autopilot boss. You grab a bomb rock, you throw it, maybe he gets eaten, maybe he throws it at it and gets stunned for longer, and then you throw Pikmin on his face, deal maybe, you know, 20% of his health, 25 if you're lucky, and then he shakes them off, and you just kind of repeat that process. So there's a big juxtaposition between knowing how to fight this guy and, you know, making it really easy and it just kind of takes a long time, versus not knowing how to fight this guy and having this guy be, like, the most deadly enemy in the game. And then he also appears in Pikmin 2, where, I mean, the footage speaks for itself. He's a joke. I don't know why they put him in Pikmin 2 if you're going to make him, like, this bad. But he's in the game for some reason. So overall, I don't feel that positively about either of his appearances. His first appearance, I think, is a little too boring, and his second appearance is just, like, free, and he shouldn't even exist. So I'll put him in the C tier, put him above Eyed Crawmad for now, because I just don't feel that good about this guy. Empress Bulblax. Speaking of bosses I don't feel that positively about. I don't like that you have to fight her 3 times. That's a lot. You should really only have to fight her twice. I think this is a good intro boss to Pikmin 2, because it kind of is the... It sets the hallmark for what Pikmin 2 is, right? It's a more difficult game. The first boss of this game, if you don't know what you're doing, will kill every single one of your Pikmin with her rolling attack. So I think that's fine. I think that the level in these Frontier Cavern, where she spawns babies, I think that's a really good level design because it forces you to traverse this really long set of labyrinths, which gives her a lot of time to spawn babies, which of course are very deadly. And then the fight after that, once you get to her, is the exact same. It doesn't do anything different. In the Hole of Heroes, it's also the exact same. She just makes rocks fall down. I just, like, this boss is cool. It's just that the way you fight her, like, it's not hard to figure out what the optimal way to fight her is. And when you're fighting her the optimal way, it's really just kind of boring. But again, there's something about her that makes me feel a lot more positively than I do about the Emperor. So I think I'm going to put her at the bottom of B tier for now. I don't think she's bad enough for me to want to give her C tier, but B tier for now. Giant Breadbug. Giant Breadbug is not a boss, it's a puzzle floor, and even then the puzzle is not hard. The puzzle is use yellow Pikmin and then carry, like, corpses and treasures back, and he gets damaged when you rip him up into the ship. I mean, this guy... There's nothing about him that's interesting, is the thing. If he was like a giant Breadbug and he had, like, a new attack... let's say he had this attack where he could, like, pull a treasure. Like, he could suddenly have, like, a burst of energy and just, like, pull something really far, and you needed, like, a lot of Pikmin to help carry the treasure back. That would be something. This guy is just a Breadbug but scaled up, and you can't damage him with Pikmin other than purples. He's nothing. I feel... again, this guy probably shouldn't exist, or he should be changed in some way. This is our first D-tier enemy, the giant Breadbug. Goolix. Goolix is a secret boss from the first game. I think his design is cool. The whole, like, gelatinous ooze kind of thing. Other than that, there's not too much to like. He's pretty surprising if he comes out, if you're not expecting it. But, like, it's not hard to figure out how to fight this guy. You take one look at him and you're like, oh, that guy's made out of water, I need to use blues. And once you use blues, the fight is just annoying. He can't damage blues, he can only damage you. He just comes after you, and you throw blues at him, and then eventually he just kind of dies, and he's kind of nothing. I like him in the sense that at least he's a fast fight, and again, I think his design is cool. But overall, he's pretty much just nothing. I guess I'll put him above Emperor Bulblax for now in the C tier. I might move him up to B if we get some real stinkers coming up. The Mamuta. Again, I don't think this guy is a boss, really. He's like a secret enemy, he's a secret character. He's not an enemy because he doesn't have any kind of damaging attack. It is literally impossible for him to kill Pikmin. He just hits them with his hands and flowers them. He's an annoyance because he makes you have to pluck them out of the ground, but that's it. There's not really much to say about this guy. He doesn't even really look that scary. He goes above Giant Breadbug in the D tier because I don't think he should really be on this list. The Man at Legs. Oh man, the Man at Legs is tough. I really, really love this boss's design, right? It's like Beady Longlegs, but he can't crush with his feet, so what does he do? He pulls out a machine gun and shoots at your Pikmin. When his stomach like comes out like that and you see that laser pointer, I mean that's terrifying on a first time playthrough. You don't know what to do. The problem is, and it's the same thing with Emperor Bulblax, if you know how to fight this guy, the fight is really, really long and boring. Because you do like 12% of his health, and then he, you know, shakes them off, and then you have to run away and find cover, or just, you know, ultra spicy your guys and run like that. But if you don't know how to fight this guy is going to kill, like, every single one of your Pikmin. If your captain gets shot while you have Pikmin in your party, like, all of those Pikmin are going to die with the machine gun, because it's super deadly. So I like this guy's design. I just think there's too much of a variance in how difficult he is, depending on your skill level. And, like I said, if you know what you're doing with this guy, he's just a really boring fight. But he gets carried a bit by his design. I'll put him in C tier. I'll put him above the Bug-Eyed Crawmad, because I really don't like the Bug-Eyed Crawmad. Pileated Snagret. Speaking of bosses I don't really like, the Pileated Snagret is probably my least favorite boss in the entire series. It's not original because it's a Burrowing Snagret that just has a higher mobility. The issue with this boss is that you can't damage him that much before he goes back into the ground. You do maybe like 8 to 10% of his health bar before he decides he needs to evacuate into the ground, and even if he gets stuck, you don't have that much time to do damage to him. Like, I've honestly found that the best strategy for dealing with this guy is, like, letting him eat Pikmin, because that Pikmin eating animation, you can throw Pikmin onto his face, and then you deal, like, 50% of his health in one shot. So this guy is, like, he's not hard, he's just really, really annoying. I find this boss super irritating. And that floor in the Hole of Heroes where you have to fight this guy where there's a sinkhole going on, absolutely one of my least favorite floors in the entire game, one of my least favorite areas in the entire series. I really, really do not like the Pileated Snagret. I'm going to put him in the D tier, below the giant Breadbug, to show how much I don't respect this man. The Plasm Wraith, the final boss of Pikmin 3. I like this boss quite a lot. The chase section earlier with Olimar, the one true escort mission in the entire series, because the entire real series of Pikmin is an escort mission, but this is like a true escort mission where you have to keep an eye on Olimar and you have to keep the Plasm Wraith from getting him. I love that section. Very, very unique area, very, very tense. And then we start the boss fight, which I think is good, but it could be better. My issue with the boss fight is that he can't directly kill rock Pikmin. If you use 100, if you use a 60 rock Pikmin, you are going to be almost certainly fine for this guy, because his one attack is impaling, and even then, when he shoots out the elemental stuff, the only elemental stuff that can really damage him is like the water and the fire, but then you just don't throw rock Pikmin into that, or if they get hurt by it, you just whistle them back and it's fine. The fact that rock Pikmin are virtually invincible to this guy's attack seems like a really big oversight on the developer's part, if you ask me. But besides the cons, I actually think the final boss of this guy is really, really climactic. How he uses every element, it's a very otherworldly fight, his design is very cool. You have to chip down his HP, and then he absorbs it, but then you chip it down and you realize the Pikmin are going for the gold bits on the floor. And so that makes it a very, very unique fight. There's really nothing else like this in the series. The rock Pikmin issue is pretty big, though. I'm not sure if I can totally overlook it. He's a really, really good boss, and I think very positively about him. But the rock Pikmin thing does not quite put him in the S tier. I'll put him at the top of A tier. I like him, but rock Pikmin are a little too overpowered, unfortunately. The Quaggled Mireclops. Now this is a boss fight. He's one of the biggest enemies in the entire series. He is so massive, and he's really, really scary. He has these big crushing attacks, he creates pools of water, and he's got that crystal on him. I like this boss a lot, because he provides variety in what you can do to him. A lot of Pikmin bosses have like a one strategy, right? Like an, oh, go here and use this amount of Pikmin. In Pikmin 2, it's a lot of purple Pikmin. This guy has multiple things you can do that are totally legitimate strategies. You have to use rock Pikmin, because you need to break the crystal on him. But after that, rock Pikmin really aren't that good. Like, yeah, they don't get crushed, but they can still drown in the puddles he creates when he stomps. So you can use blue Pikmin or winged Pikmin to mitigate that. Also, winged Pikmin do less damage. Or maybe you don't want to be immune to any of his things and you use, like, red Pikmin to do more damage. Winged Pikmin also great for charging onto his body. Like, there's a lot of really interesting variants in how you can fight this guy. Obviously, wings are generally accepted to be the best strategy. But this guy is just very, very creative as a boss fight. There's a lot you can do with him. He has a lot of, like, hidden stuff about him. There's, like, a couple hidden attacks he does that I think are interesting. I love this boss a lot. I don't think there's really a single bad thing about him. His tongue attack is very, very scary, even though I think it should eat a little more Pikmin. The fact that he can crush so many under his feet, and you have to attack his feet to damage him, very, very scary, very tense. I think this is a great penultimate boss fight to Pikmin 3. I really don't have any problems with this guy, so I'm going to put him as our first S-tier boss. I think the Quaggled Mireclops is excellent. The Raging Longlegs. The Raging Longlegs is unfortunate. So I like Beady a lot. The reason I like Beady is because it kind of forces you to use yellows, and again, sometimes you might miss his body, and they end up scattered and you have to whistle them back. Here's the thing about the Raging Longlegs. Yes, he has really, really big feet. He can crush 100 Pikmin underneath one of his feet. The problem is he stomps so slowly, and his body is so big, you cannot really miss his body. Like, when I was getting footage for this, I was like half asleep, and I think I killed like one Pikmin. This guy, he's just a joke. For being the final boss of arguably the hardest dungeon in the game, it's so, like, he's so non-threatening. You throw Pikmin on him, he does his tantrum, but then you can just keep throwing Pikmin on him during his tantrum because his body is so big and he doesn't move around that much. You just keep throwing Pikmin on him and there's nothing you can really do. It's unfortunate. It's weird to have a Pikmin 2 boss get, like, stun locked. This kind of feels like a Pikmin 3 boss in that regard. But the Raging Longlegs just does not do it for me. I think I'm going to put him in C tier. Let's put him below the Man at Legs, because his design is not really all that special. The Raging Bloyster. The Raging Bloyster is another unfortunate boss that suffers from the stunlock issue. I respect the fact that they tried to make a boss that utilizes multiple captains. He's one of the few enemies in the entire series to kind of encourage you to use 2 captains at once. The issue with this boss is the fact that if you just press Y and wait for him to change color, and then press Y and wait for him to change color, and you just do that over and over again, he is incapable of moving. It's the easiest stun lock in any game I've ever seen. It's kind of shocking to me that, like, no one on the development team thought that that might be an issue, or maybe they did and they just didn't care. But the Raging Bloyster is just, I don't know. I have a hard time feeling anything about him, because every time I beat him, it's just like, oh, tap Y, throw a Pikmin. Okay, tap Y, throw a Pikmin, and it's just that for, like, 15 seconds until he dies, basically, so I don't know, put him below the Raging Longlegs. Sorry, Raging Bloyster. The Sandbelching Meerslug. Really, really great design. Really, really great design for the arena he's in. Having this giant monster, like a huge enemy underneath the sand. It has the classic Sarlacc pit attack where it tries to suck you in. This boss, unfortunately, suffers from an issue where he has 2 attacks, and both of those attacks can be countered if you just lock on and press the X button to charge at him, and then he can't do anything. He comes up to spit rocks, which, by the way, those rocks are not lethal. They only plant Pikmin in the ground. If he comes up to spit rocks, you just kind of follow him, lock on, charge, he comes to the ground, do your damage. And if he goes underneath the ground, you, again, just kind of follow him, even though you're supposed to get out of the pit. You just follow him to where he's going to go. When he sinks to the ground, you lock on, you charge. You do enough damage before he gets to eat one, usually. And then he bursts out of the ground, and you get to do more damage. So I really, really like this guy's design. He just suffers from the Pikmin 3 issue of he's way too easy to defeat with abnormal circumstances. But I like this guy a fair amount. He's going in the bottom of B tier just because I like him. The Scornet Maestro. I like this boss, but I think he's not that good. The main issue I have with this boss is the fact that it takes so long for him to get to his next cycle. Like, if a boss takes a long time to get to his next phase, if he takes long enough that I start to consider switching captains to do something else, I think that's kind of an issue. Also, he has the most obvious, like, damage cap out of any boss in the game. Like, once you get to a quarter health on this guy, he just, like, shuts down his health bar and forcefully shakes all your Pikmin off. But those are the cons. The pros are that I think a boss that commands 100 of his own little minions is very interesting. I like that concept a lot. I like the different shapes that the Scornets can take, even if I'm not a big fan of the last one, because it's a little too easy to cheese. But overall, I think this boss is good. Kind of. Yeah, he has some flaws, maybe some things that aren't so great. He's not that fun to fight. But I like him. I like the concept. I like how you get the 100 Scornets after you beat him. I think this boss is pretty creative. I have definitely a personal bias, but this is a personal tier list, so I'm going to put him in the B tier for now. Let's put him above Empress Bulblax, why don't we? The Segmented Crawbster. I think this boss is good, and I think I like him, even though I couldn't remember his name in my playthrough. I think this boss is actually pretty creative in what he does, in the sense that he's not just like a guy who eats Pikmin, or he like attacks them in some crazy way. He rolls around, and then you have to bait him into a wall, and then rocks fall, and you have to throw them on his belly, and then rinse and repeat. So it's a pretty simple boss, but it's also kind of complicated in the sense that you can't have your Pikmin really be leafs, and that attack he does when he gets up from his belly being attacked, it's really, really fast, and he does it multiple times sometimes, and it's really good at turning your Pikmin into leaves. This isn't so much a bring your best Pikmin scenario, it's bring your fastest ones, which I think is good. I think any boss in Pikmin 2 that incentivizes you to not bring purples is probably a good boss. I think this guy's really creative. He's fun in the sense that he has kind of a unique gameplay mechanic of trying to go fast. I mean, every boss wants you to have flower Pikmin, but this guy really wants you to have flower Pikmin. I feel pretty positively about the segmented Crawbster. I think I'm going to put him at the bottom of A tier for now. We'll see how he moves later. The Shaggy Longlegs. Another member of the Arachnorb family. This one does not do it for me, as the Man at Legs and the Raging Longlegs do not, but for a different reason. So in theory, this guy is a pretty difficult fight. He's basically Beady Longlegs, but harder. The difference is, you have Rock Pikmin, and Rock Pikmin are immune to his attacks. The fact that every time you pluck all the hairs off his legs, he gets stunned for a really significant amount of time. That is perfect time for either you to charge all your rocks into another leg, or to maybe have a couple of rocks already on another leg, so he just kind of ends up getting... He gets the Pikmin 3 treatment, he gets stun locked when you take all the hairs off one of his legs. If you don't use rocks, he is actually fairly deadly, he can kill Pikmin pretty easily. The issue is that when you have a boss that's deadly, but has an obvious counter, you kind of don't really have a choice at that point. You're like, well, now I have to use the obvious counter to this guy to make sure I don't lose all of my Pikmin. Also, Winged Pikmin exists, so when you pluck all the hairs off his body, you kind of just charge your Winged Pikmin in, and it's really easy. So I don't feel that much about the Shaggy Longlegs. I'll put him at the top of C tier for now, I guess. The Smoky Progg, the optional boss in Pikmin 1. This guy is, great. I love the Smoky Progg. The fact that you have this mysterious egg sitting in the middle of the distance ring, you can check your map and see that there's not a ship part there, so you're like, well, what's this egg about? And should you be so unfortunate as to open it, maybe by accident, here comes the Smoky Progg. He is really, really tough. You have to be really precise with your throws, because obviously the trail behind him is poison. Also, the fact that he comes directly to your base. If you accidentally unleash this guy, or you try to unleash him and fight him, I mean, you are committing at that point. You have to fight him. You cannot just ignore him and bring ship parts back, because he will run through and kill any Pikmin that end up at your base. And he's really, really good at killing Pikmin. But if you stick with it, if maybe you're willing to lose a few troops and you fight this guy and end the fight, you get that golden pearl worth 100 Pikmin. I mean, this is a huge, huge risk versus reward. The Smoky Progg is, I think, excellently designed. He's what an optional super boss should be. Very high risk. He can kill Pikmin in a single instant. A very high reward, because you usually don't lose more than 100 Pikmin to this guy. You're going to come out on top in some regard. I think the Smoky Progg is excellent. I think he's going in the S tier, right next to the Quaggled Mireclops. The Titan Dweevil, the final boss of Pikmin 2. I love the Titan Dweevil. I think this is an incredibly climactic fight to end the game on. He's a giant spider. He unearths himself out of the ground in a very dramatic fashion. And then he has all 4 elemental weapons. No Pikmin is completely safe from everything. All the 4 weapons have their own unique musical cues. They all have unique things they do when you damage them enough. The lore behind this boss, the fact that Louis is probably ending up controlling them, or him rather. The fact that when you knock all the weapons off, he is completely harmless. This boss is, I think, really excellent. Because there are certain tiers, right? Like the fire weapon is not that powerful, but the other 3 are pretty deadly, especially if you get a bit ballsy and try and go in a little too early or a little too late. I mean, that electrical weapon is just ridiculous. So you have to bring yellows, but then the water weapon is also pretty deadly. So if you separate your 2 captains, every time he uses the water weapon, you need to switch back and forth. So using yellows is not just an instant cheese to win this fight. I've seen people say this fight takes a while, which I agree with. It is known to kind of take quite a long time at some points. But honestly, I've never really had that much of an issue with that. I mean, I think this boss is just really, really well designed. I think this is the perfect closing to Pikmin 2. He's super deadly. He's pretty, scary if you don't know what you're doing. I just think the Titan Dweevil is an excellent boss. I think he's going in S tier. The Puffstool. I feel absolutely nothing about the Puffstool. I often forget that this guy is even in the game. He has 1 attack. It's really, really easy to avoid. And that's basically it. Even without C-stick throwing, I often end up just accidentally one-cycling this guy. I think he's like sort of unique in the sense that he just kind of runs away and then fights back in self-defense. But he's not really anything besides that. He's just kind of... he's nothing, really. I feel nothing about this boss. This is the bottom of C tier. I'm sorry, Puffstool. The Vehemoth Phosbat. The Vehemoth Phosbat is a good boss, because there are two phases to it. Phase 1 is the puzzle, right? He's borderline invincible at this point. I mean, unless you're playing on like the easiest difficulty, you can't kill him before you turn on the big light bulb. So he's just kind of this omniscient threat that comes around and occasionally wants to eat your Pikmin as you're trying to get bridge pieces together, and if he comes too close to the light, you can use the light to stun him, and then you can get your damage, or you get this opportunity to get more bridge pieces. It's a really good back and forth. And then, of course, when you turn on the big bulb, he's borderline harmless at this point. You kind of just chase him down and fight him. I do like this boss quite a bit. I like the puzzle element. I think it's very, very unique, very creative. There's not too much to dislike about this guy. I think he's going... let's put him above the Armored Cannon Beetle for now in A tier. I like the Vehemoth Phosbat. The Waterwraith. Last, but certainly not least, the Waterwraith is infamous for a reason. I think that everything about the Waterwraith and the Submerged Castle is, like, borderline perfectly designed. Much like the Vehemoth Phosbat, he is this omniscient threat. He forces you to play so differently from how you've played previously. You have to go fast in this dungeon, because if you don't, he's going to show up. And if he shows up, you are guaranteed, almost guaranteed, to lose like at least a few Pikmin, as long as you have a treasure left on the floor. Because this guy, he doesn't slow down when you go near him, so he can kill an infinite number of Pikmin if you're not fast enough. And he just creates this sense of terror and anxiety throughout the entire dungeon. I mean, he controls how you play the dungeon, and there's nothing like that. The only thing close to this in the entire series is the Plasm Wraith in Pikmin 3. Other than that, this guy is totally unique in how he makes you play the game. And then, of course, you get to the fight itself, and the fight itself is obviously a joke. But I like that. I like that you have this, like, horrifying presence that just massacres your squad, and the fight against him is the easiest fight ever. He can't do anything, he runs away from you like a coward, and you just kind of beat up on him until he dies. I think everything about the Waterwraith is, like, perfect, so it's no surprise that this guy is going in S tier. Those are all the Pikmin bosses from 1 to 3. I'm going to do some finishing touches here to try and make this a little more accurate, so just give me 1 second. Alright, I did some final adjustments. I think that's about where I want everyone. You are free to civilly disagree with me in the comments. Comment your choices below if there's anything you think I got totally wrong. Now that we're at the outro, thank you guys for 100 subscribers. That is a lot of people. I'm not really sure how to process that. But, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you soon. Have a good day.